Welcome to Eldercare Illuminated, Torchlight's caregiving podcast. Eldercare Illuminated addresses the ins and outs and ups and downs of caring for your loved ones. Join us for interesting conversations with eldercare specialists, geriatric care managers, attorneys, and ordinary people with extraordinary caregiving experiences.
Hi there. Welcome to another episode of Eldercare Illuminated, brought to you by Torchlight. I'm your host, Lenore Tracy, and today we're speaking with certified caregiver consultant Elizabeth Miller. Elizabeth is a caregiver and a supporter of caregivers near and far through her consultancy and her web presence at happyhealthycaregiver.com. You may have read about Elizabeth's caregiving saga in a recent article in Woman's Day magazine, where she describes the difficult caregiving experience that brought her vision for caregiver support into sharp focus. I am delighted she can spend some time with us sharing what she's learned. Just a reminder that Eldercare Illuminated is a production of Torchlight, which supports working caregivers and their families. If you're not currently a Torchlight user as offered in your employer's benefit plan, but you would like access to Torchlight, ask your employer to call us. Contact information is on our website, torchlight.care. And now, welcome, Elizabeth. We're so happy to have you with us today. Your mom lived in Florida, as I understand, and then moved to be near you in Georgia, making you her primary caregiver a few years ago. I understand that now your mom lives with your sister in another state. How did your family make that decision?
Wow. Yes. Lots of good information to share with you. Thanks for the nice introduction to Lenore. Mom did live with me and nearby, and I was her primary caregiver for a couple years. And we had felt like we had exhausted our options here. We had tried 2 different assisted living communities, and the way I like to phrase it is, I think there takes 2 parties in that, there's the assisted living, of course, and then there's my mom. And we just kindly say Mom sometimes didn't meet us halfway on that. She was definitely used to having personal care. And unfortunately, that's just not something that can be counted on at a high level at those particular assisted livings that we had tried. So my sister also had a life change happen where she went through a divorce, and she initially had considered taking my mom when she was still married, when raising children, but it just was not an option for any of us to take mom into our home and have her get the level of care that she needed. So when my sister Susie had a life change, Mom was definitely, on board with it because she knew that she was going to get great care from my sister. I was on board with it because I had felt like we had exhausted all of our options here in the Atlanta area. And it turns out it was a great move.
What did you have to do to make it happen and plan for the transition? So your sister is in another state, so that sounds like a huge transition.
Yes. And, even when you plan it, things don't go as planned. So right before that, and this just cemented the idea that we were doing the right thing for everybody. My mom was having respiratory issues. Again, she has COPD. She's mobilely challenged, uses a walker and wheelchair to walk. And she has diabetes and edema and sleep apnea, a cocktail of different things. And before that, she had been hospitalized. Before we were planning to do the move in April, allergy season is big in Atlanta. Respiratory issues just for a normal person can be a lot. And those can sometimes be a rough time for Mom as well. And so she was hospitalized and in a rehab facility, and she literally never even went back to the assisted living community, which was rough for her because she wasn't able to say goodbye to some of the friends and stuff that she had made. Some of them did come by into the rehab facility and see her, some of the workers and so forth. But that did allow us to pack up her place and get that all in a moving truck. And that my sister drove. I'm trying to even think how we got her there. I think my little sister drove my mom, who lives in the DC area. And then my older sister drove the moving truck. And they moved Mom up to Pennsylvania.
Wow. So was Mom in the car or in the moving truck?
No, mom's in her. So we have a car for mom that she doesn't drive, but it is the most comfortable car for her to go in and out of. It's a Ford Flex, and it was, my parents' car before my dad passed away. And it makes it easy, which I think for all of us, we're able to get the wheelchair up and in the back, we meaning me and my sisters or whoever's taking my mom to and from. And it's, her comfort.
That it sounds like it was a wonderful caravan of you guys moving north. How's your sister doing in her new role? That's a big change.
She's doing great. Yeah, it's a big change. And, it was a big change for her in a lot of ways. She had gone through a divorce. Her kids are all in college or beyond college. And so she had this whole empty nest, and she will say, she's a nurturer. This is what she does and enjoys doing. She's an artist, but she's also been a stay-at-home working artist for many years. And it fits, it works. And the funny, interesting thing too, is I think my sister had always thought about moving to our summer home that we've enjoyed since we were young, has been in Michigan. And this is my mom's second home. They were in Florida, but my parents had a home in Michigan that they used in the summertime. And so my sister and my mom now live in Michigan, which is, it is a year-round home. They, of course, have winters, and they've had to do some things to transition for mom to be able to live there. They had to do some work on the shower and take some of the fall barriers out of the bathroom tile and put some ramps in, and also get a generator because, you can risk losing power. And not only do you need it for the heat, but mom also needs it for her oxygen machine that goes into her sleep apnea machine at night. So all of those things had to be taken care of before they could live comfortably up there. And so they've been up there since the fall, and I was able to go see them recently. So it's going well.
So they're getting through their first winter. I don't know what Michigan's winter of 2018 has been like, but ours has been pretty intense here in Massachusetts. So your sister had to make the transition of having your mom move in, making the house ready for somebody who had special needs. And then on the other end, you had a big transition to get through. My family probably would characterize me as a control freak, and you were kind of in charge and the primary caregiver for your mom. And now you're the supporting actress. Was that hard?
Yes and no. I do think that, my personality is type A. Some might say, control freak, but I do think, and I don't know if you agree with this, Lenore, that when you're a caregiver, a family caregiver, part of the lessons are the lessons in learning how to let go, because you cannot juggle and manage all of these things. And so I knew I don't like failing. And I wouldn't consider everything that we did a failure, but we were struggling with the systems that we have in place. And we knew that we needed something different. And so it was difficult more to just not be around my mom and not be able to go and access her. And I also felt, and you don't know how many days and years you're going to have left of that. And so she's quite a distance away from me now. And so I do not see her as often. Luckily, we have FaceTime, and we enjoy using FaceTime. FaceTime is funny as well, because sometimes my mom can't figure out quite how to get her whole face on the screen. But we have a lot of fun with that. And I also felt like it was hard to transition it to my sister, because I knew that my sister had just gone through this huge role change, and it felt like I was handing her this huge cement boulder when she came down. And, we get emotional about it. We have a great relationship, which I think is foundational with my two sisters to make this all work. And so when I was giving her this huge set of responsibilities, this is not fun. Nobody wants to volunteer necessarily to be a caregiver. And I really had some respect for what she was doing. But I made her a little gift, because I thought, well, how can I make this easier? I made her this caregiver jar, I call it, which is like this mason jar. And I'm a quote motivation type of person, that those reading things really uplift me. And so I have collected things over the years, and I put them on little slips of paper and put them in this mason jar and put a, happy, healthy caregiver sticker on it. And I just said, this is so you have a little bit of me in your ear every day, because this is going to be really hard some days, and you can pull this out and you can read it, and hopefully it gives you that little bit of encouragement. And so my role has really changed to be more of her support. system, more my sister's support system than even my mom's, because my mom is in great hands. My sister is super organized. She's on top of the finance part of it. And she will definitely, we've hammered into her that she needs to reach out and ask for help. And we check in with her often to make sure that she's not burning out and that she's getting breaks.
That's incredibly important. I'm the primary caregiver for my mom, who lives with me. And I have a sister who's far away. My sister lives in Iowa, and I talk to her every day. And I know she can hear in my voice, like, something's not good. You're not having a good day. And it's huge to hear from her. I have a brother who's local, and they are both right in there with me. And we have divvied up some of the responsibilities among the three of us, which I know I'm very, very fortunate that my siblings and I were all on the same page. Have you been able to divide responsibilities? Because there are things that people can do from a distance. Any good examples in your own experience?
Yes. I mean, particularly when we had first moved my mom from Florida to Georgia, I'm one of 6 kids. And so, but I do have an older brother that has a developmental disability. And so we count on him he lived in the area and he would visit mom and go see her and spend time with her. And that was mainly his role. And then I have 2 brothers that lived in the Atlanta area. One of them was really great with technology. And so my mom's a writer and she's pretty savvy with her iPad. If she doesn't have Wi-Fi, it makes her very unhappy. And so things like that would be my brother setting that up, making sure all of those things were connected. My other local brother, at first I think the natural instinct was for me to take on a lot of it. And then I realized that it wasn't scalable. I have 2 active teenagers. I work full time and trying to take care of my own health and happiness. And so I had to learn, like I said, those lessons of letting go. And so I had to be real specific with my brothers about the help that I needed here in Atlanta. And so my one brother ended up taking the grocery store responsibility on, because frankly, there are weeks when I'm not even sure when I'm going to get my own grocery shopping done and dinners made. And so adding that on for mom, even though she was getting meals, in assisted living, she liked to have her diet ginger ale and her snacks and her clementines and things like that. And so he took that on, and we would just text her a list and he would do that. And that was a huge help. And they all the brothers were good about spending time with her. I do think in retrospect, I've heard this tip since that I can pass it on. It's not mine, but that somebody had created like a digital calendar, like with an app called Calendly or something like that, where you could schedule times that you were planning to go visit, because there would be times where I would get there and my brother was just leaving, or I would be there and my brother was just coming. And I was thinking we should spread this stuff out, so that mom can have a visitor every day, and that was something I wish we had done. And then my sisters, even from a long distance, my older sister, before she assumed caregiving responsibilities, she took on the homes in Michigan. She was making sure, that the lawn maintenance and getting the dock pulled out of the lake and all of those things. And she was also helping with my brother with a developmental disability. He has paperwork that's involved. She was doing that. And then my little sister in DC was paying all the bills. So we had the billing address changed to my sister, and she was paying all the bills at the time. So it was a divide and conquer approach for us to make that happen. And now my older sister, Susie, does take on most of the stuff that was kind of spread out, but we are definitely there more for respite reasons. Like we will fly in so that she can go and be with her kids in Pennsylvania, and also just respite for her with us, getting her away for a sister's weekend. We call it annually, where she can just have no responsibilities. We all need that.
Absolutely. And you've pointed out that you have family that's really spread around the country, and family members who are at a distance, they can do stuff. They can pay bills. They can deal with some of the tech issues. My sister does all the shopping in turn, not for groceries, but for things like, mom needs 2 new nightgowns, or we need new sheets or towels or whatever, anything that can be purchased. She takes care of that and just has it shipped here, which takes a big burden off me. So people, being creative about who can do what. And that also plays into the letting go. If you're the kind of person who's used to doing everything for yourself or being the go-to person, letting go is going to allow you to manage. And you have two teenagers at home. I just can't picture it, how you managed to get all of that, under your belt. A lot of pizza nights.
Yeah. I mean, there was some conversations even with my kids where, when I'm coaching people now and doing consulting, I explained to them that you have this whole tribe of people, and part of my tribe was my kids, and we had very frank conversations because my husband was also a primary caregiver at the same time for his mom who had lung cancer, and he had a brother in Arizona. So it was all falling on my husband locally, all the local responsibilities. And so he and I were both in the thick of it. And we just had frank conversations with our kids. Like, look, school is your job. We cannot take time to, look at your blogs and stay on top of you. We're counting on you to own this stuff. And we expect that you, perform. And then also around the house, like, we're going to need you to pitch in with the dog. There are going to be times where you might need to make your own dinner. We taught them, how to make some basic stuff, but it was intentional that we knew that they were going to have to step it up. And frankly, there were days where people would ask me, like, do you know who your kids, who do your teachers, what do your kids have for biology? And I'm literally, it's months into the semester. And I'm like, I really have no idea. I have no idea who their teachers are because they're owning it. And luckily for me, they owned it. I mean, they're great students. And so I think while there might have been some guilt when those questions were being asked about the teacher, in the long term, I know that they're going to be very independent children, which is great.
I think that giving your kids that responsibility has given them a great perspective on family roles. And also it's the antidote to helicopter parenting. I'm probably somewhat older than you are, Elizabeth, but in the olden days, parents didn't know who their teachers were when you were in high school. You would know, your parent would know who your kindergarten teacher was and your fourth grade teacher. But by high school, you got to take on those responsibilities. When my mom was in an assisted living, my youngest son, who was in high school at the time, he took on the job of dealing with the cat. My mom lived with a cat, and she was in the beginning of Alzheimer's disease. And I couldn't get there every day. I work also, and somebody needed to do the cat. He did a great job. It also gave him exposure to older people, which a lot of kids don't get that experience and don't get to see. If you haven't visited at an assisted living facility or a nursing home as a young person, you might be quite surprised at what it's like. And you might also have missed out on what older people have to offer. And I'm really glad my youngest got to do that. And it sounds like your kids probably spent some time with both of their grandparents in facility or seeing their grandparents age.
Yes. In fact, I will say for my kids in particular, they have not really ever seen my parents healthy. My parents had always had health issues their whole life. And, they do have, my husband's father is healthy, and we thank him all the time for, his health and happiness, and he's remarried, but they've seen that firsthand. And they have also are holding us accountable. My husband and I is saying, hey, we want you guys to be around to be active grandparents in our kids' lives someday. So take care of yourself.
And you listen, because you've seen it from both sides. To go back to working with siblings and taking care of a parent, have you had to get through any conflicts? It sounds like you've got a very cooperative group, but you must have had some things that didn't go so well.
Oh, we've had conflicts. Yes. I mean, even initially when my dad had passed away in the summer 2014, and we were actually anticipating that my mom could potentially have passed away that year, but it threw a loop, and I think that happens a lot in an older couple where my dad was the primary caregiver for my mom and my brother, and it impacted his health, and he ended up passing away, and it really shocked us. I mean, it was within a month's time, and my mom had just gotten back from a rehab facility, and we definitely didn't have options. She was 6 hours away from family, but that was very tough. I mean, you can imagine emotionally mourning dad, we had just said goodbye to him in a hospice facility. My mom was not, her health was so bad that she was not even able to go see him, but maybe 2 times in that month when he was hospitalized. She was there. He was surrounded by people when he passed, but it was a very difficult, I call them courageous conversations, with affection, because, I think on the spectrum of my sisters in particular, like, we're the decision makers in a lot of ways for that's just the way it is. My brothers will, they want some of the information, but they're not actively involved. The 3 of us are powers of attorney from my mom. And, I would say that I'm more of the tough love kind of sister of the 3 of us who wants mom to live as independently as she can, to advocate for her own health. And then my sister Susie is a big time nurturer. She wanted to take care of my mom and dote on her. And my middle sister is somewhere, or my little sister is somewhere in between. So the 3 of us, I think, and we had some tough times where it was a hard thing, like taking my mom from her retirement beach home and finding the right assisted living community was really hard. And getting my mom to, it was emotional. I mean, and it finally, we just didn't have options. We had kind of talked him through and laid him out and talked him through multiple times. And then, even here in the Atlanta area, my brothers sometimes, depending on the mood of the day, somebody could go over and mom's mood might impact them, or vice versa. And you got, like any family, emotions involved. There were definitely times of that, and then there's, of course, escalating mom's world, like I said, and a Wi-Fi being down as an emergency. And so managing some of that, and who's going to go over there and, hey, it's your turn. I mean, that's normal.
Did you find yourselves apologizing to each other a lot, or how did you?
Yeah, humor, I think, is where we can kind of all kind of come together. Is we just say, we can't make this stuff up, and we would have, a group text with us that we would share funny things and being like, "Can you believe this happened?" Like, just when you think you're on top of it. Humor connected us in many ways. And I think knowing too that, when it would get really heightened, sometimes it would just be like, look, we all really want the same thing here. We just want mom to be happy and healthy, and for all of us to have a process that we can stay sane doing.
That's sometimes a big challenge. I think for families taking care of somebody whose health is deteriorating or is just temporarily in bad shape, there's a lot of forgiveness involved. When we snap at each other, or when you've had no sleep and you're crabby, I feel like, okay, I've got to acknowledge it. Like, you had your kids own their responsibilities, that I have felt like it requires you to own the experience and your emotions. And sometimes you just got to say something. I'm sorry I bit your head off. I didn't sleep last night, or I'm going out to pick up some milk now. If you're lucky, I'll come back. So combination of humor, forgiveness, thankfulness, it helps get people through. It sounds like
you're being direct sometimes and just be like, look, I'm losing my mind. Can you do it this week? Or can you drive her to this one appointment? I've got this important meeting. Or it's a lot of negotiation for sure.
Yeah. In your consultancy, have you had to deal with any families who are having tough times negotiating responsibilities? What do you suggest to them when at least one of the caregivers is losing his or her mind? What do you offer them for pathways?
So where we start is just trying to understand, what their expectations are with the different family members, and asking them, have you shared those expectations with them? And lots of times I think, and I was guilty of this as well, that you expect people to just know and to just do it. Well, I would have done it if I could see that this person. The best way to handle that is just to be very specific about how that person can help you, and educating them on all of the different responsibilities that are on your plate. And I do have a resource that we work through. It's I have 2 resources actually, a family responsibilities worksheet and a caregiving responsibilities worksheet. And it lists out, family responsibilities could be all the things at your home and all the things, that you're expected to do just in your normal life. And then you have your whole caregiving responsibilities, and the siblings can definitely help with your caregiving responsibilities. And so really walking through those and putting people's ownership names on that. And then there are some times, and this is sad, where there are people who just cannot step up to some of the caregiving responsibilities. And no matter how much we want them to help, they just aren't. And so if you have tried to, be more direct about, hey, these are the responsibilities, and it's not working, at some point, then we switch the conversation to, we need to, accept that this is what it is, and that your brother or your sister is not going to change, and they're not going to be helpful. And let's talk about some other options that you have available to you in your community.
That sounds like you've got some really good approaches for people there. Caregivers are notoriously bad about asking for help. And then sometimes you just have to accept if your family members aren't going to be the people who are helping you. Sounds like your approach is very pragmatic. And I can see that being helpful for a lot of people. I have one more thing I wanted to ask you about. I recently read a Facebook post from someone who shares caregiving with, I think, two sisters. And the mom moves from one daughter's home to the next one's each month, which sounds really stressful for the mom, but I think they make it work. I can see some advantages to it. Have you heard of any other creative strategies or arrangements that can help people get through the caregiving?
I have heard some direct experience through one of my community, the folks in my Happy Healthy Caregiver community. And what she did is they lived in Pennsylvania, actually. I didn't know her personally, but from my own home state. And her mother, she took care of her aunt, and her aunt lived with her, had dementia. But there were times in her life, because she also had children and a husband who ended up having a sports injury. He played like professional tennis, where her aunt would transfer down the street to her mom for periods of time and come back. So similar to what you're saying, it wasn't out of state. And it was just like, hey, you're going to visit mom's house for a while. And of course, they didn't have to take and lug a bunch of different stuff with them because they were very conveniently close by. So I've heard of that. I have also read about some different things that sound interesting. One thing I read about recently was kind of this integrated community, which I think is a great idea, where college students are, get some kind of a break for living amongst elderly seniors and maybe being paid or offering them services for volunteer hours and having this integration. And I can see it even expanded where you might have a kennel nearby where the people could see the dogs and walk the dogs, or maybe a nursery where they are seeing babies. And I think that that's where I would like to see this go in my lifetime, is that there's some kind of an integration with all these multiple generations, because we see it when I've seen it when I go into assisted living and you bring in a young child. I mean, the faces light up, and it's entertainment for them to just watch and be around them and interact with children and pets and so forth. My mom's second assisted living, they had a dog, and that dog got lots of loving. And so I think that was something I would see. Have you heard of anything like that, Lenore?
I have seen that myself, and kids and animals coming into a nursing home or assisted living, and everybody lights up. But I think we're going to see more and more creative arrangements as time goes on, because as the population of older people grows, which is burgeoning, and the resources and the available professional help is at this point not there, I think we're going to have to be creative. I think we're also going to look toward what some other countries are doing. I've read some interesting arrangements for Alzheimer's patients in village setups in some of the Scandinavian countries, where a sort of town-like situation is developed that is completely safe for people to live in who've got serious memory issues, serious dementia issues. So I think we're going to see a lot of change in the coming years, because this is, it's all going to come to a head. And up till this point, we, as the nuclear family has changed dramatically, and as people have spread out over the past 50 to 100 years, the family has changed. So we're gonna see creative things happening, and I hope we'll see lots of good things, especially as younger generations get involved, which they will. Elizabeth, it was wonderful talking to you. I learned a lot, and I think our listeners will learn a lot. To our audience, thank you for listening to this episode of Eldercare Illuminated. Check out happyhealthycaregiver.com. Whether you are your loved one's primary caregiver, or you're a supporting sibling, a spouse, or a parent who's in the hot seat, there's a lot you can do to help. And don't forget to cut each other some slack when the going gets tough. So whatever role you get to play in the family drama, it's not easy. And we need to be kind to each other. If you want more information about today's topic and you have a Torchlight Elder account, log in and explore the growing number of e-guides and tools that we offer. If you don't have access to Torchlight Elder as part of your employee's benefit plan, but you'd like to, ask your employer to call us. Our contact information is on the website, torchlight.care. And you take care now. We'll see you on the next episode of Torchlight's Eldercare Illuminated podcast.
Thanks for listening to Eldercare Illuminated, a Torchlight caregiving podcast. Find other episodes of Eldercare Illuminated on iTunes, Spreaker, and Podcast Go. If you're interested in bringing Torchlight Elder or any of Torchlight's other caregiving products to your workplace, please contact info@torchlight.care. That's info@torchlight.care.